Welcome everybody to the SAHA 2025 Virtual Symposium panel on SAHA residents have sufficient food, water, and clothing. My name is Joel Tabar. I'm the Director of Community Development Initiatives at the San Antonio Housing Authority. And first, I want to start by telling you how we arrived at this outcome for SAHA, which is, as everybody knows, a housing agency. SAHA provides housing assistance to approximately 47,000 San Antonio residents living in about 5,500 public housing households and 13,000 Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher households throughout San Antonio. We partner with local organizations such as the Food Bank, San Antonio Food Bank, Meals on Wheels, and the city to provide SAHA residents, primarily our elderly residents living in public housing, food through a variety of food distribution programs that our partners offer. In November of 2019, we surveyed our residents and identified priorities for SAHA 2025 outcomes. Among the priorities identified was residents have sufficient food, drinking water, clothing, and shelter. To be sure, we sent a follow-up survey to residents in April of last year, and the responses showed support for this proposed outcome. A few months ago, we had a series of resident and stakeholder meetings to determine the strategies that we would implement to achieve this outcome. The strategies identified for this particular outcome were narrowed down to focus strictly on food. So the first one is increase resident access to existing food assistance programs and develop new partnerships to provide food assistance to populations not served by existing programs. This discussion will be loosely guided by those strategies, but it will also include a general discussion of the food insecurity issue in San Antonio, which I'm interested to learn more about. And fortunately, we're joined by experts in the field of food security and food assistance. They're much valued partners of the Housing Authority. And so our panelists, I will begin with, our panelists will introduce themselves, their organizations, and some of the programs that they provide, which I'm sure we'll talk more about throughout our discussion. So our first panelist is Eric Cooper.
Hey, everybody. Great to be with you. I have the privilege of being the president and CEO at your San Antonio Food Bank, which actually serves 29 counties now throughout South Texas. We've got a facility in San Angelo and another facility in New Braunfels. We have a very holistic approach, but work through lots of partner organizations and have been privileged to partner with SAHA for many years. Definitely a believer in the great work that SAHA is doing and have really worked to try to make some of our programs and access points available to residents. And I'm super excited to have this kind of dialogue and to be able to improve strategy and to be able to make sure that no one goes hungry in our city. And so pleasure to be with you guys today.
Thank you, Eric. Melanie Maguire, please introduce yourself. Oh, is she not on? Okay. Maria.
And I think Joel, so I think I bumped Melanie. Yeah, okay. So Melanie Mcguire is our Chief Programs Officer, and she's in the audience, and she is an incredible advocate for our programs and strategies and a real inclusive and equitable partner. So I think she asked if I would just be available to lead this conversation with you all today.
Yeah, excellent shout out. Thanks, Melanie. Maria Rivera. Or I'm sorry. You're on mute.
All right. Thank you so much. Sorry about that. I'm Maria Rivera, and I have the pleasure of working for the City of San Antonio Department of Human Services. And I am in the the Senior Services Division, serving as one of the social services managers that oversees our senior centers. We have 10 comprehensive senior centers that the city runs that operate 7 to 4 and provides wraparound services essentially for our older adults in the community, as well as we have about another 42 partner sites that provide nutrition services for us, as well as 7 additional part-time sites that are is also operated by the City of San Antonio. All of these centers provide food for our older adults through the Older Americans Act. And what we are essentially providing in the way of food through that program is typically a hot noon meal outside of the COVID environment. And we are part of the Congregate meal program that really, the intent of that program is to keep our older adults healthy, engaged, and involved, to decrease isolation. So one of the requirements for our program is Congregate meal programs to eat together. Right now, during the COVID world, we're doing a little bit different programming, and I can talk a little bit more about that as we go along. But I'm glad to be here with you all today.
Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, Kristen Rivera.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen Rivera. I'm the Community Engagement Director here at Meals on Wheels. So Meals on Wheels, we serve the isolated and homebound seniors in this community. We serve approximately 3,800 seniors a day, and that's mostly done by the volunteers in this great city. We make sure that we are sending out nutritious meals. We have dietitians on staff to make sure that the food is appropriate for the seniors who we serve. It is a regularly changing menu, so also it's exciting to see what it is that's going out. It's not the same thing that's being delivered every single day. But besides that meal delivery program, we also serve the pets of our seniors, because we know whenever you're isolated, that pet who lives with you is your family member. And we want to make sure that people who are isolated and have those pets are never having to struggle to be able to maintain the health of their pets. So we also have a dog walking program, we have a pet food program, and we have a veterinary care program now that we are able to offer to our folks. In addition to that, we do comfy casas, which is to make sure that the homes that our seniors are living in get to be their homes for as long as they are comfortable and safe to be there. So we help install grab bars and maybe widen some door frames and add ramps. And that just makes sure that our folks are stable and safe and able to stay in their homes for as long as possible. And we also have a socialization program, because we know whenever you're at home and you're isolated, you don't have anybody to interact with. It used to be an in-person volunteer opportunity. Obviously, since the pandemic, that is not able to continue. So what we've moved it to is people are now making phone calls and doing a letter writing campaign, which is really cute. So we've got a bunch of pen pals out there who are still making friendships with our seniors. So everything that we do, we're just really trying to focus on keeping our seniors in their homes, in their neighborhoods, that they are comfortable and where they want to be for as long as they are safe to be there. And jazzed to be here. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. This is a very important discussion. I know that many of you in the audience will have questions throughout the discussion. Feel free to enter those questions into the Q&A box, and towards the end, I will try to get to some of those questions. So let me start with the big issue, the unignorable issue, the COVID-19 pandemic. Mayor Nurnberg, in a State of the City address last year, he said that the COVID-19 pandemic made clear fault lines of inequity that already existed in the city before the pandemic. He said, and I quote, "COVID-19 has moved the ground beneath our feet. It's changing our landscape, shifting our immediate needs, and further exposing long-term problems that have too often plagued us." So as a result of the pandemic, the San Antonio Food Bank saw the need for food double. You went from feeding nearly 60,000 individuals per week before the pandemic to about 120,000 during the pandemic at the time the State of the City address was given, which was back in June. And so now we're at a new year. The COVID-19 pandemic is still ongoing, as we all know. The country recently received a second round of stimulus checks. COVID-19 vaccinations are being distributed throughout the city. All those things in mind, what is the current state of food insecurity in San Antonio, and what is your outlook as the pandemic continues? And this is open to whoever would like to answer first.
Yeah, well, I'll lean in a little bit, and I think you framed it really well, Joelle. I mean, our city had issues before COVID, right? And I think that's the bottom line. And as we work through this, what's our future destiny going to look like? When it comes to nutrition, there's four big barriers. Number one is income. How much you make determines how well you eat. Geography, where you live. Do you have access to a traditional grocery store? Are you rural, urban? Do you live in a food desert? Um, Education. Do you know how to cook? Can you prepare your food yourself? And then commerce. Unfortunately, food that tastes really good is marketed very heavily and is sometimes cheap, but not that good for us. And so you think about things like the dollar menu. And so if we're going to impact nutrition and have a reduction in chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease, hypertension, we've got to help individuals and families overcome those four barriers. And so for us at the food bank, it truly has been this unprecedented demand being met by an unprecedented amount of support, but it's just not enough. I think, you think of the food bank feeding 120,000 people a week, we're taking in about a semi-truckload of food every hour. And it's going out at that same cadence. And what we're trying to balance is just that we don't become overdrawn at the food bank, right? That there's enough deposits and support coming in to be able to sustain the need at the moment. And ultimately, I think it's trying to get consumer confidence and public safety with the spread of the virus that can ultimately start to heal the economy. And as the economy starts to strengthen, we can get families, back to work. And ultimately, I think through the economy, we can start to shorten the line at the food bank. And I think we all need to be champions for those issues like living wage and creating sustainable employment. The need for PTO, right? Sick leave. We've learned in COVID that if you've got some symptoms, stay home. Don't spread the virus. But for many of the families that we serve, staying home means losing their wage, and so they are used to going to work sick, because the need of income. And so we want to make sure that when we come out of this pandemic, that we've started to address some of those root causes of inequity, of imbalance, because ultimately, we shouldn't have to feed 60,000 people a week. I look forward to leaning in with the mayor and council and policymakers to do all we can to make sure that we help families ultimately get nourishment.
Excellent. Does anyone else want to chime in on that?
I think I'll hold till the next one. I think, and I'll chime off of Eric there.
Thank you.
I would add, Joelle. Oh, go ahead, Kristen.
That's okay. You go ahead, Eric. I'll wait.
Well, I think it's important when, just in answering your question, Joelle, is there's lots of other, supportive services that are available to families, right? And so what's driving some of the increased demand is the level of childhood hunger that's going on in our city. And there's more kids today going hungry than ever before in the United States. And it's primarily due to the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program not being able to fully execute congregate meals. Too many students are doing distant learning and they're home and they're not getting their traditional breakfast, lunch, and sometimes a snack at school, and families are trying to make that up at home. and that pressure and that stress, along with just the continued confusion and stigma associated to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. So, you know, Bexar County is at a record level of participation at the moment. I mean, we're drawing down about $37 million each month in SNAP benefits, but there's more families that are applying that are struggling through that process. So I want to put a little caveat there that you know, later maybe I can just talk about what the food bank's doing to make sure families do draw down those public benefits, because those are actually much larger than anything that this panel is providing today, right? I mean, we don't provide the kind of volume in food support that the SNAP program and the WIC program, you know, and the National School Lunch Program provide. I think most charitable organizations are just trying to fill the gaps around those programs, and we want to do all we can to make sure families are aware of those and how to participate.
Kristen, it looked like you were going to add to what Eric said.
Yes. So like the food bank, Meals on Wheels has also grown by quite a bit during this pandemic, because as we know, more folks are more unable to get to those resources. And so we grew by about 2,000 additional participants during this time. And that has been initially a bit of a struggle because we rely so heavily on volunteers to do our meal delivery for us. And so with that, which is a thing that we like to boast because it's the human interaction that folks are really missing. And especially during this time, what a bummer that we're trying to reel that back in. But we have come up with a safer way in which folks are still able to maintain those deliveries. And so instead of seeing our people every single day like we'd like to do, because of the pandemic, we want to give them a little bit more space. So we're seeing our folks every other day. So we're delivering the same amount of food. We're making sure that everybody's got ample amounts of food still. We'll send out 3 meals every time we go out there. But our folks are having the meals in bags and hanging them on the door and having to stand back about 6 feet and make sure that everybody's safe. We have so much hand sanitizer. I'm drowning in hand sanitizer over here. We make sure everybody has enough of that. We've got masks galore. So we are doing what we can also to make sure that folks are still able to get that nutrition at their doors, even when we're supposed to be staying farther away from one another. The way that we're still checking in on folks is we call them daily, make sure that they're doing okay, see if we can connect them to other resources. Like Eric said, maybe some folks are able to cook, and so we can connect them to someone else who can meet those needs better. Because what we serve is a prepared meal, and maybe they don't need that. Maybe they just need the grocery delivery service. So I do love that we are all participating in this, because gosh, we know that to build a stronger city, we all of us have to work together, and we're all doing what we can to make sure that we're meeting this need during this time. And here's hoping it ends soon, but I think we all are just ready to keep chugging along and meeting those needs as they arise.
And you know, Kristen, you're absolutely right. And I'm going to chime in here for a moment, Joelle, because I'm sitting here on this panel with 2 of the biggest partners that we have for our senior centers, the Food Bank and Meals on Wheels. And, you know, just as Meals on Wheels and Food Bank have had to adjust, we too had to adjust. Our senior centers are closed. We haven't seen them as this quiet, gosh, since they were built and the grand openings of these buildings. And we're missing everybody so much, but you know, we have to just be happy with what we're able to do at this point, which is still get the food to our participants, those that need it. So, you know, we've adjusted from hot meals to curbside, frozen meals, and just as the food bank or Meals on Wheels is doing, we're doing Mondays and Thursdays. Some are doing daily, some are doing 3 times a week, just whatever our partners can assist us with to get the meals to our older adults with reducing as much, you know, the contact that we have just to keep them safe. But we have also seen, you know, with the state giving us right now we are working under a waiver for the Congregate meal program. And we were able to transition our congregate meal program to a homebound meal program. So we did also see some growth in that. We were historically serving about 2,600, 2,700, and now we're up to about 3,100 a day, because we are also able to help serve those that can't come to the centers. So, but it does take the village, it takes the world, and with Eric's team, they're there with us. We're doing those commodities to continue to help get that to our participants as well. So they've been a real good partner in continuing to give us that food, the food that we can hand out monthly to those that are eligible for their program. So we really appreciate that too.
Yeah, we appreciate all of you. We've also modified our operations prior to the pandemic. We were having on-site distributions, and we had residents volunteer to help us sort and distribute. But because of restrictions, we have all of our distributions now coming to central office. And so a lot of our staff at SAHA volunteer their time or are voluntold to bag and sort a couple times a week, multiple times a week sometimes. And so our staff has really been troopers throughout all of this to modify our operations to still get the food out to folks. So we're no stranger to, just all around, it seems like the increased need combined with the restrictions is causing a lot of us to go the extra effort. And so are there any plans to modify delivery of services for continued long-term recovery from the pandemic? For example, providing food for children during the summertime. Is that going to be different than previous years, or any other kind of future modifications to your operations that you can foresee at this point?
For us, go ahead, Eric.
Oh, please okay. Go, Maria.
So for us, we're going to continue as we are right now. We've got all of our sites continuing to provide that curbside service, or just as our participating SAHA sites are. SAHA's been great with their employees and just getting those meals to their doors, or just continuing to serve the older adults at in the residence for which we would have served that congregate meal. We'll continue to do that as long as the state allows us to do that, and until we are safely able to open the congregate centers again. For children on our end, our program is solely for those 60 and over. So I think that's more of, so just wanted to give a heads up on that.
Yeah, so good segue. And first of all, I think if you're watching this, there's a couple of things I think you need to know. And number one is our website at safoodbank.org. So if you're in need of help and in need of food, the best place you could go is to that website. If you lack internet access, you can call our helpline at 210-431-8326. Again, 210-431-8326. If you can't get to safoodbank.org. You need to know, as a resident of our city, if you're in the season of struggle right now, that we love you and that we're here to help you. It's with that perfect intention that we're doing the best we can. Sometimes there's policies and barriers and confusions, and we want to make sure that we help families understand those so that we can overcome them. And we want to continue to learn. As we've talked, there's been lots of adjustments that have been made. The bulk of our food goes through a lot of our partner organizations. So in and around the SAHA properties, there are food pantries. These are run by churches and other nonprofits and great organizations that withdraw food from the food bank and provide it by way of groceries through their food pantries. Many of them have opened up curbside pickups because of COVID. Some of them have had to adjust their hours, but I'd say that is a great resource, number one, right in the neighborhood to be able to get food from your local food pantry. The second would be our pop-up distributions, which I think have trended in the media. And I think sometimes people think that's the only way we give out food now, which it's not. But if you are able to get out, you can register for one of our pop-up distributions, and you can find the next one at our website, register for that, and your experience will be going to a location where volunteers will load the trunk of your vehicle. Now, many come to those distributions that don't have vehicles. They're coming via or ride share, or they're walking up. You can still get food at those distributions. Obviously, it's a limited amount of food without a trunk, but if you have the ability to get a ride with someone, you can do that. Now, if you are elderly, disabled, and lack transportation, you can call again or visit the website for a home delivery. We've probably got about 4,000 or 5,000 households that get a monthly food box delivered to them. It's a challenge. As Kristen mentioned, this is all out of volunteers, right? So if it isn't the incredible individuals of this city stepping up and coming to the food bank to pick up those food orders, they don't get out. But we are delivering, thousands of boxes of groceries to homebound. So if you qualify for that, you can get that. There are also some meal programs too. So for seniors, similar to Maria and Kristen, we have prepared meals that the food bank delivers to all ages in different programs. And this is usually where the confusion is, because people are like, hey, I saw the food bank and my neighbor got food, but I didn't. And it's those program restrictions that sometimes enable us to serve some and not everybody. And so it really starts, if you're in need, by just calling the food bank. We frame our work into those 3 buckets of today, tomorrow, and a lifetime. The today work is those pantries and those pop-ups. But the tomorrow work is really helping you apply for those public benefits like SNAP, WIC, CHIP, Medicaid, TANF, and long-term care. Those are some incredible resources that can bring some incredible resource to your household. Our lifetime work is really about workforce development, job training, job placement, and nutrition education. We too believe in serving the entire household. So love what Kristen was talking about. We provided food to about 80,000 pets this last year. We're distributing more than just, people food, but pet food, refrigerated, frozen, non-perishable, and non-foods. But it's through these partners, and SAHA has been an incredible partner in helping us connect the dots with families and the work associated, because we're all volunteers and working in the space, so to speak, of trying to make sure we get our job done, and this other duties is assigned. I love Joelle's voluntold. They've got a full-time job plus then facilitating these groceries. And as Maria mentioned, at the senior nutrition sites, they've got all kinds of stuff going, and then once a month our truck pulls up and unloads pallets of food that they have to, it's kind of a form of CrossFit. They get a workout in and get those bags packed, but patience and understanding in the process, but helping us understand where there's gaps is I think the opportunity to help us continue to improve and meet the needs that maybe are there that we're not meeting. So
Excellent.
Well, and if I can jump in real quick.
Oh, absolutely.
So to Eric's point, some folks aren't able to go to those centers. And so I know they drop off, it sounds like, monthly food boxes that need to be prepared. We are serving prepared meals that, like I said, are dietitian approved and healthy, and we'll bring them straight to your door. So just like they are, we'd love to make sure that we are a known resource to everybody. We're also serving the San Antonio Senior Centers now. So that's a fun new opportunity where we get to engage with other populations throughout the city. And we also want to make sure that everyone knows that just because you're maybe not a senior doesn't mean that you won't qualify for our services. We want everybody to make sure that they reach out to us and let's see how we can help you. Some of our services, you don't even need to be a meal recipient to receive. We can still help you if you need some home modifications, which I know for the SAHA community may be a little bit different, but perhaps pet services and things of that nature would be more viable for them. So I will also plug our organization. Our website is mowsatx.org and our phone number is 210-735-5115. We are jazzed to, like I said, be a part of the city and be able to do what we can to help everybody.
Right. And Joelle, if I could say one thing,
Sure.
so I think the three of us here, really, we, and even with SAHA, we've really worked well together on resource referral. So if you're listening to this, if you're one of our residents or even an agency that's out there that aren't really too familiar, I think we've really got that no open door, no wrong door policy. And, if you do not know where to go, feel free to call any of our agencies and we will get you to the right connection. The senior services phone number is 210-207-7172. Okay. And you can find us at www.sanantonio.gov. But it works well, and we're pretty familiar with the who can do what. So I've gotten, referrals from Kristen and referrals from Eric and his staff. So we just kind of tag team it and get you to where you need to go.
That's an excellent stopping point for one of our audience Q&As or questions. Do your organizations collaborate on community outreach together? If not, how do you all believe that the city can come together with your organizations to reach out to more of the community, especially those that do not have access to reach out to your organizations?
Gosh, who wants to go first?
Yeah, I think the short answer is yes. By nature, the San Antonio Food Bank partners with over 500 nonprofits that are providing food. And so it's navigating that, where is someone at, what's the location, what's the dynamics that's going on in the household, right? As was mentioned, you have to think of sometimes the support nonprofits are given, it's restricted. And although we try to educate those donors that are giving us support, hey, allow us to do exactly what we want to do. Most of the time they say, no, you need to do this with it. So we've got to meet those restrictions. And sometimes there's age, geography, household size, all kinds of different things that we're trying to meet. And so as a referral partner, we're trying to help families navigate that. And so, yeah, if you're homebound and you're in need of a prepared meal, and, Meals on Wheels is going to be a great option. But if you're, kids home because they're missing their National School Lunch, School Breakfast program, they might not be able to provide those meals, but there might be, a way that we can get those meals to you through our either, summer programs, if it's summer, or during school, we've got prepared meal sites throughout the city that we're working with. So it's really, think of us as nonprofit service navigators. It's tough. There's probably some big overarching, you can always call our local United Way, Bexar County, on the 211 help hotline. That's a great kind of referral connectivity. But I think reaching out directly to any of us is another great source. But we're all working together to try to make sure that the gaps are filled and that families' needs are met.
And on our end, with the city and Department of Human Services, we're currently, not that we throughout our business, we're doing resource and referral, and senior services, one division of our department. So we're really, the department itself is really taking care of those from their day that they're born to the day they get to go and enjoy at the end of life. So, and anything in between. So we're working, we've been working with our partners through Resource for Referral constantly. And right now we're working on getting a system where we can connect each other together. At times we're all really busy and it might be hard to get Kristen or Eric or Melanie on the phone and say, hey, I've got this person for you. So we're working to try to get a system that will connect us all together and be able to get our participants, our residents, to the doors through technology means quicker. So that'll hopefully we'll be able to get that taken care of and get that going too. That'll assist us just to be able to further help somebody, that they don't have to go call this person and call the next person. Our hope is to be able to take information, get what we need, and that you don't have to fill out an application at the next place that you go. So hopefully we'll be able to get that off the ground and really help the residents of San Antonio with that.
I think they answered that sufficiently for me as well. All of those resources are available. The resource guide that Maria is talking about, we're excited to be able to be a part of that as well.
That's great.
I think this city is just, like I've said already 3 times, it's cool that we're all working together. I think if anything positive can be said about the pandemic, that is the thing that has most moved me, is the number of organizations who come together to make sure that we're still serving everyone.
Absolutely.
Well, adding the fact that our city government is involved, I mean, Maria and her team and just for an organization that serves multiple counties and hundreds of cities, and myself personally working in different states, it's rare that a city government is so active in trying to meet the needs of kind of the human service sector. And so I'm so proud of our city for leading and stepping in and convening and investing, because you just don't see that in other markets. We're pretty blessed to live in this great city.
Yeah. And again, we couldn't do it without all of your partners. And I think it just makes it so much better when we're all working together, and so much easier for our residents. And again, our buildings, when we are able to open the doors, are open for anybody 60 and over, free of charge for the clients of Meals on Wheels, for the clients of Food Bank. They're there for everybody. For those that are living in the SAHA residence, and the only eligibility is 60 and over, but our 10 buildings have so much to offer, and so much opportunity for socialization and just getting out there. And if you want to take an art class or a music class or exercise classes, or get on a exercise bike, it's there for you all to use free of charge. So definitely, if you're 60 and over, just look us up. We'll be happy to serve you.
Great. We are SAHA as an organization. We've been kicking around the idea of adopting a value for the agency, which is housing as a human right. I know housing isn't in your field necessarily, but you do have, or I think it's safe to assume that you all have adopted the value that food is a human right. Which on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, shelter and food, you fall into the same category. So my question for you is, how do you operationalize this value? And given some of the restrictions and limitations that have been discussed, how do you communicate that value in a way that makes sense despite not being able to see it to completion, to provide every human possible with nutritious food that they need? And what are some of the challenges and advantages of being driven by a human rights value?
I've been jumping in first. You guys, you know, I'm gonna.
Yeah, I'm
I thought
trying
I
to think
finally
how I
sunk
want to
it.
start that. You know, and
Yeah.
I think, you know, it's something that we all want to do is be able to provide for every single person. And I think that's where the capacity issue also gets to. And yes, food is our core service in senior services. You know, we've got these beautiful buildings in our beautiful buildings that our partners run for us. And with the city, and I think we are lucky in this world. And if we go to different agencies or different conferences, you know, just around serving older adults, we have found that we are very lucky in San Antonio. And I think it is due to our city council and our leadership that they really feel for, you know, our older adults, just as they do the rest of the community, that everybody should be able to have that meal. So I think, you know, we do have our constraints in our grants that have us, you know, kind of tied. I think that's where the partnerships come in. If I know that I can't serve this meal because they don't meet they're not able to congregate, I can go and I can call Kristen for that. If I find somebody that has no food on their shelves, that's where I know I'm not going to stop just right there, because I would not want to be without food myself. I'm going to reach over to Eric's group and get them connected. So I think, you know, us as a city really take that to heart. And really that's one of our goals, is to ensure that our older adults are fed, and that they don't, that we are able to reduce that food insecurity and that they don't go hungry.
Well, here, I'll jump in before Eric then. Haha. So, I mean, what a huge question, and what a philosophical discussion that this could really roll into. But absolutely, housing should be a right, a human right, as should food. We know that if our basic needs aren't met, then there is so much that we're at a loss to do. If we don't have a place to lay our head, if we don't have food in our tummies, we're not able to function as humans. So that absolutely makes sense. And to Maria's point, it may be that not everybody qualifies for either my or Eric or Maria's specific programs, but collaboratively, we're able to help to meet those needs in the healthiest, most humane ways possible. So yeah, love it. I think it's great.
Right.
Is it fair to say that it's having that value, it's more about moving up the continuum in pursuit of that ideal versus actually achieving it at all times, which, you know, is not possible. And so that's kind of the way that, you know, we've been discussing it. And you're right, it is a huge philosophical, it could be a whole panel discussion on its own. That said, I'll move on to the next.
And I think you're right. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think you're not going to get there at one set point. I think it is something that's going to have to continue, and everybody's going to improve until we are able to get to a point where everybody's rights are met. You're exactly right,
Yeah.
Joel.
And I think understanding that it's a very dynamic environment, right? You know, hunger is truly a symptom of a bigger issue, and that's poverty. People in poverty tend to, you know, lack access to maybe affordable housing, you know, meaningful employment. You know, they might lack, you know, access to healthcare. They might be going through a season of struggle, divorce, medical crisis, COVID, right? And so that's very dynamic. And I think of people in poverty tend to struggle with a lot of issues. Someone that's hungry just tends to struggle with one. And until you address that basic issue, it's tough to start to then address the complexity of poverty. And so it has to be done in tandem. You have to do both. It's not a either or, like in the parable, give a man a fish or teach him how to fish. You know, I tend to say, if you don't pack a tuna fish sandwich, she won't meet you at the dock, right? She wants to learn how to fish, but her babies are hungry, and she's got to take care of them today. And so, you know, in this approach at the food bank of today, tomorrow, and a lifetime, we just try to recognize the evolution of meeting those basic needs, which are rights, but they're connected to all of those other things that I think are necessities. You know, access to healthcare is huge, and it has to be affordable, right? You know, education. being able to get a quality education to move our residents forward. And so, it's in these collaboratives and partnership with school districts, with everyone, that I think will ultimately move residents forward. There's just such a demand and not adequate resources. And I think, I don't know, I was asked by a bunch of doctors at a healthcare convention, how to get people well. And I'm like, the challenge right now is, we spend all our money on kind of sick care. And, could you imagine, where your healthcare paid for food, right? Like, instead of getting a prescription of pharmaceutical products, you got a prescription of healthy produce, and you could get that filled each month, and you got adequate nutrition. Maybe you wouldn't need your healthcare as much if you had access to healthy food. And so I think we've all got to advocate for these basic rights, to elected officials, to policymakers, and I think we'll end up getting somewhere.
Excellent. That's a great segue into the final question for the panel before we go back to audience questions. What impact do you anticipate the new presidential administration will have on fighting hunger and providing those resources that providers need to be able to provide food to families in need?
Well, I can take that first with just some things to look forward to that's just come out of the stimulus package right before the administration change, as Congress decided to do the second round of stimulus. Obviously, families are maybe aware of the $600 stimulus check. I think that will help, but more needs to be done. When it comes to the SNAP program, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, there was a 15% increase in the amount of SNAP that families can receive. Now, the state of Texas, Governor Abbott is currently on a month-to-month renewal of families receiving the maximum benefit. So if you're on SNAP, you're getting the maximum benefit. And now, thanks to the stimulus package, you'll receive 15% more through the summer. So July is when I think the 15% will stop. But there's a few other food subsidies for families with small children that participate in the National School Lunch Program. Last year, there was the Pandemic Electronic Benefit Transfer, PEBT, which allowed for households to receive $285 per child for kids that qualified to get free reduced price breakfast and lunch at school. So there will be another round of PEBT. You need to be super patient. You'll be communicated through your school district again as the Texas Department of Agriculture, the Texas Education Agency, and the Health and Human Services Commission come up with the strategy for this year's pandemic electronic benefit transfer. But that was, again, approved in the stimulus. There's some direct support that food banks are gotten. It was actually $400 million nationally. Texas will receive about $40 million for the state of Texas. Not enough. Just our food bank, there's 20 food banks in Texas. We would distribute that 40 million in 3 months. So just San Antonio. So it's a drop in the bucket. And I think Congress absolutely needs to do much more. There was some additional support given to a program called the Farm to Families Food Box Program. I know many residents of SAHA have probably been the beneficiaries of different nonprofits that have received some of those boxes, and they're trying to get them to families. Again, this last round, we're thinking, we don't know, didn't award a contractor in Texas, but there was a contractor out of state that we're working to try to get some of that food support for our communities. But I think the change in administration is always an opportunity to see if we can strengthen some of the gaps. I've been working with the Biden-Harris administration in USDA's strategies, just trying to be an advisor at the appropriate times to be able to shape some of how they're looking at some of these gaps in the food system when it comes to emergency food. And there definitely has been a sympathetic and at least a listening ear in response. I think we saw that at the inauguration. There was a lot of interest and focus on food insecurity. So we're crossing our fingers that that support will come, and that we'll all be able to make sure that families get those basic needs met.
Excellent. I am going to turn it over to the audience now, who has a couple of questions. First, how does your organization help to change the mindset of individuals and families that have COVID by letting them know they still need to do their duty of protecting others from getting it? I'm assuming this relates to, as you were talking about earlier, Eric, about, folks still going to work or, perhaps still congregating. What is your role, your agency's role in preventing the spread of COVID by, educating families and individuals?
Yeah, I think it's something that every single American owns. Every individual on this planet owns this, right? It's not an organization. It's every one of us. That number one, you got to wear a mask. Number two, you got to do good sanitation, wash your hands. And when out in the community, stay physically distant. If you've tested positive for COVID-19, you need to stay quarantined, right? And you need to think about who you might have exposed and do everything you can, to limit your exposure, to get well. When you qualify and when you're able, I think each one of us will have the personal choice whether or not to get the vaccine. As for myself, I will be getting the vaccine, right? I think that's something that I can do to protect myself and those that I love, and that's you, right? That's our community. So early on, back in actually before the pandemic really got started in February, the food bank launched a preparedness and prevention campaign trying to supply families with what we thought at that time was more food, should it be that we couldn't get to them, and then some prevention strategies. So just, PPE, when it comes to, hygiene, hand sanitizer, all that kind of stuff. We all now know what we should be doing. We just need to execute on it and see if we can bend the curve, reduce the spread, kill the virus so that we can all experience what we once experienced pre-pandemic.
Yeah, I was going to say, Kristen, it seems like the whole business model of your organization is designed for this. And so I wanted to see if you had anything more to add to that.
Well, I mean, to Eric's point, it really is just all of us as individuals need to recognize that this is a real problem that needs to be taken seriously. The way that we have been communicating with our volunteers and our clients is we send out regular notices, regular reminders. Whenever folks are rolling through our pickup line, we make it as contactless as possible. We're putting meals in people's trunks, sliding their client information in through the opposite window. So we make sure that we're always reminding folks wear a mask. If you don't have one, we're passing them out. But clients at home are receiving the same sorts of notifications. Make sure that you are not as tempted as you may be hugging your meal delivery volunteer. Make sure that we are just doing everything that we can. I hate to give it up to Eric like that, but yes, all of us really just do need to make sure that we are taking this seriously as individuals and though we as organizations can do what we can to make sure that we are encouraging, it's a people thing. It's an individual people thing, and we all just need to make sure that we are doing what we can. So information is going out, flyers go out weekly. We send out text messages that always remind our volunteers, wash hands, wear a mask, wash hands, wear a mask. It's the same rhetoric that we hear everywhere though. So I don't know how much extra influence we have. I hope that people listen. I hope that people are doing it.
I think it's too, you're exactly right. I think, you know, we're on our end, we're doing education flyers, preparing our participants in our community for when we are able to get back to our normal, whether that's it's probably going to be a new normal, especially in our buildings. But you know, just doing the best we can to make sure that they're safe. Again, you know, we handed out masks if they didn't have masks. But when, you know, when they come through our distribution line and we don't see them with the mask, reminding them and just helping them, asking them to help us help everybody else and just keeping them safe. But even, you know, and I think it is the same, everybody doing their part. And even in our division, you know, we are doing more things through the Zooms, through the WebEx, because we want to make sure that we too are making or allowing our staff to see that we are taking it seriously, just like any other resident needs to see from us. So just making sure that we too are doing our part when we're at work, whether it's remote or, you know, at the same center together doing our distributions. We too have to be 6 feet apart so that we can show that example. But it does come down to everybody doing their part. Just like it takes the village to make sure that everybody doesn't go hungry, it takes the village to make sure our community is safe. So.
Excellent way to end this. Eric, Kristen, Maria, Melanie, and the audience, you guys are among our most valued partners. We're very grateful. The work that you do, there is no better work that can be done. So thank you very much for your time today, for you know, the rich discussion that we just had. And we hope that all of our audience members out there, that if you are in need of any food assistance, that you reach out to any of these partners, as well as your case managers at SAHA, and we'll get you connected. So thank you very much for everybody who's on the line. This is the last session of the day. Please return to the main menu or the schedule that you have, and to attend the SAHA 2025 Virtual Symposium closing remarks. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you all.